We talked last year, right before the Super Bowl, and his piece of advice was about getting better every day. I had an amazing experience as an assistant, and I wouldn't just say that. I really did. I worked for 3 awesome bosses at WME. It just continues to evolve by just trying different facets of the industry.
Welcome back to the Hollywood Hang. We have a very special guest today. You probably definitely follow his meme page. Warner Bailey is the creator of Assistants versus Agents, also known as AVA, a meme page turned media company he founded while he was an assistant at WME in 2018. AVA has secured partnerships with major brands and studios like Amazon MGM, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime, Warner Brothers, Meta, Nike, SZA, and RCA Records. Bailey also writes the AVA Connection, a weekly newsletter that shares industry insights, open jobs, and the stories of entertainment executives. He is currently developing IP across multiple mediums. In addition to his work with AVA, Bailey founded Sunset 9, a creative agency with clients including Don Julio, PepsiCo, AB InBev, Celsius, Hendrix, GoPuff, Red Bull, Desert Air, GV Surf Club, Palm Tree Fest, and Boiler Room. After working in touring at Live Nation and WME, he served as the festival director for M3F Fest, a nonprofit festival in Phoenix, Arizona. Bailey spearheaded the creation of the M3F Fund, which donated $2.3 million to more than 35 charities during his tenure. Bailey is a passionate advocate for philanthropy in the arts and currently sits on the Music Industry Advisory Board for Save the Music. He is originally from Philadelphia and a graduate of Georgetown University. Warner, thank you for coming on our podcast.
I mean, you're hired for any future call I ever go on. I've never actually heard. It was amazing. I appreciate the intro. Honored to be here. Excited to chat. But yeah, you're hired for every future call I'm ever on. I'll start off with just you.
I didn't know if I was going to be able to get that in one take, but I think it's just all it's pitch practice. I tried to put on my pitch mode,
That was really good.
That was really good. It was strong. I was inspired.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, know what this made me think of, that intro? You, to me, already feel like someone, Nick and me talk about this a lot, where you have found a way to break into multiple facets of this industry. And it wasn't the typical path. It wasn't like, I go agency, I go assistant, I go coordinator, whatever all those roles are. And it also wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go write a show and hopefully put it on YouTube or go to Sundance with something. I think that's really fun.
I think a lot of that was, thinking when I first started that I wanted to be in something more structured. Like when I was at WME, I loved it. No matter what, however the tone of the account is, I really did enjoy my time in the agency, but I felt I was constricted in terms of, my creativity, both there and Live Nation. Again, enjoyed my time at both, but I think a lot of it's been, figuring out by doing and saying yes to a lot of things. And I've got myself, involved in a ton of ththings now that I'm passionate about, but it just continues to evolve by just trying different, facets of the industry and liking a lot of them. So trying to figure out ways to, intertwine brand sponsorship and the digital side and the immersive festival side into kind of one company, which is what I'm focused on now. But definitely non-traditional. I'm from as traditional as you can get with WME and Live Nation. But now it's when people ask me what I do for work, I ask, how long do you have to sit down and let me try to explain this to you.
Did you ever consider being an agent? Because I feel like your personality, I mean this in a good way, you just have a really commanding, powerful, good pitch personality. I could envision you as a power agent.
When I took the job at WME, I'd never been to LA. I was in DC working for a couple months at a tech company after school. Applied on a Thursday, got the job on a Friday, and went out here on Monday. So I really didn't know. At that point, I was just excited to be in the industry, to be honest. And I was booking shows in school, working a lot with the talent agencies, and heard that it was the best place to get your start in the industry in terms of networking. And that may or may not be true for some. But when I got there, I really did think I wanted to be an agent. I loved being so immersed in the industry. But I quickly realized that my brain, I'm too ADD to be able to focus down on one singular pathway, and it's seen it as kind of a linear progression through assistant to agent to, hopefully one day getting partner. Over the course of, at that point, I think it's changed significantly post-pandemic, but 10 to 12 to 15 years, knowing where I would be then kind of scared me, to be honest, because I had other creative passions and endeavors that I wanted to go tackle. And I felt a little bit restricted by that at something far more structured. So when I started, absolutely wanted to become an agent. I actually got promoted to agent trainee, and then 5 days later, kind of had a self-realization moment, like I'm kind of locked in if I continue to do this. So had a chat, and W was very open for me to go to Live Nation and try something. In my mind, that was a little more creative in ability to be on the other side, the like in-person aspect of the business.
Did you know in high school, were you like, I want to work like in music and the entertainment industry?
No, so I mean, from Philly, like there's certainly great music venues there, and I grew up going to shows, but it never even crossed my mind. I thought I wanted to go into marketing. I took marketing internships, at the beginning of college. I went for a sport, got hurt my sophomore year, and had to figure out how do I fill the time now because I had some more downtime. So I was going to a venue called Flash in DC. They booked a lot of more like house electronic acts. And so I was like, I want to work for them. I think it would be cool to spend some time. So they had an opening for a graphic design position. I'd taken one class in college, which is kind of funny. It's looking back now. And I said, screw it, I'll apply and just to teach myself how to make art, like posters and ad mats. So I did that, got the job, and then started going more into booking of shows. And that's when I realized my passion lies in like bringing community together. And that at that time was in person. So a lot of it was seeing the power that live music has on people. I wanted to be a part of that from a business sense. And I had no idea, I had no idea what an agent did besides the fact that they were the ones that we were calling to get talent. So I think in school, like it transitioned from an interest as a fan to how can I get myself involved in more of the booking aspect of it. So then went back on campus and started booking all the shows for them. So I was running like the program board or the live music sector of the program board, and then started to realize maybe there's an opportunity to do this as a full-time gig. I was still working like internships and jobs during school, like trying to just like fulfill, myself.
Going back to the assistant thing again. So, cause I know I've heard with your interview on The Town and stuff, but I'm curious, when you were still an assistant and when that meme page first started, were you like, I'm assuming in the beginning, there was just probably a couple followers. You probably maybe told other assistants, like, did you keep it totally anonymous? What was like the very early days of it? Were you like scared that, what if my boss sees this? Like, were you totally like, I'm never going to tell anyone who I am?
There were 4 of us that kind of kicked around the idea of starting it and actually like got together. And like, I think we all had the password at some point where we're kind of doing it. But it originally started, shout out the guy, Tim Meldman, who was in the festival department. Me and him would print out memes, and we had to send the contracts in manila envelopes to each office. And you put their initials on there. You put like a contract or whatever, a deposit slip or whatever it may be. And someone from the mailroom would come up, pick it up and take it to their office, which is kind of funny because he sat 10 feet away from me. I could have probably passed it. But so we were like, we started putting memes in there for fun because the assistants would open all the packages. So we were like, this is hilarious. We're kind of putting like stupid stuff in there. And then we just decided, I don't know how exactly it happened, but a couple of us were like, let's just make this into like a fun Instagram page with 10 followers. I think some of the others, like at that point, I really started finding an interest in like making them. Going back to my graphic design background and passion, like I've always just for fun made different graphics and stuff. I wouldn't necessarily say I was making memes before that, but so I started just populating the page with very niche specific stuff about reviewing contracts or when, some even more niche than like what's out there now, like very specific to what we were doing day to day. There were 12 followers, 15. I'm like, all right, this is kind of sketchy. There's 20. I'm like, okay, now there's someone in like TV following and film. If they find out it's me, because at that point I was like really passionate about it. And the others were like feeding me info and I would be the one posting. Once it hit like 50 or 100, I was like, if my boss, because I was working for who's now the head of music, Kirk Sommer, who I loved, and he was a great boss. But like, if he found out I was writing a page, kind of like ragging on it, the role a bit, I was going to get fired for sure, especially something that was public. So certainly nervous. But the first year or two when I was there, maybe had like 200 followers, like 300. It was all WME with a couple like CAA people, I think. And maybe like UTA or at that point, I'm not really even sure. Then when I left to Live Nation, it started to expand a lot more. And I was less nervous. I think people started to find out it was me, but not my coworkers that I sat near. And then once people did start to find out it was me, I was like, well, for me, I think the lens I've always taken with the account is a spin to positivity. So I wasn't as nervous for people to find out once it really started like gaining steam, because a lot of the content was like humor based. not ever calling people out by name. You're kind of ragging on the role in a way that's like using like humor as a mechanism or like relatability. So, but to answer your question in short, I was absolutely scared.
When I think about the meme pages, at least from our sort of the ones that I can recall as a millennial, the big meme pages turned like media companies. I think about something like Fuck Jerry, which I know became this huge thing. And now they even have those little like board games or whatever. Or I think about Jumois is like a really modern one, right? That has now become like a book and it's going to be a TV show. But when I think about a lot of these, like either Dumois doesn't really have the positivity for me. It's more of like it's this like gossip type thing, right? And the show doesn't really have like an IP to it other than like it's a show about gossip and probably the internet and celebrities. And then I think about Fuck Jerry and it's like there's not really like an ethos or like there's no like theme to it. It's just like memes, right? So I feel like yours is unique in that it captures this cultural moment of like, I don't want to call it the assistant uprising because that sounds like something bad, but like assistants being lifted up. I just feel like it really taps into this thing. And a few years ago, we did have a version of an assistant uprising where like Scriptnose was talking about assistants being paid more, and they were actually hearing assistants talk in interviews for once. So can you talk a little bit about, like how that kind of evolved? Because like I do feel like it's not just a meme page. Like it has a built-in like purpose and meaning to it that is quite tapped into this moment.
I mean, it's a great question. That was certainly by accident, but something that's been more purposeful in the past 2 years. It starts at the core is people always say, what's the niche of something? You know, I think that's so important in pop culture. For me, it literally was about Hollywood assistants at talent agencies at the beginning. And I think it's evolved certainly well beyond that. You know, I think because people can relate to some of the content of, you ever, had a tough time at work or a bad boss or dealt with some crazy requests, like you can relate to some form of the content. Even when I was at WME, like we didn't even have our own emails. It was like the initials of our boss's assistant. And like, I didn't really think a lot about it then, but I've made a couple like posts about it. It was like when that movie Call Me By My Name came out and like WME finally gave their like trainees their own emails. There was kind of a moment around like people commenting, but it's not something you really think about while you're there. But when I start to post things like that, where it's not calling anyone out by name, but bringing up like maybe everyone should have their own emails and create their own identity as assistants because they are people that are going to be in leadership roles. Some of them within 2 years, have gone off and started their own company or gotten hired elsewhere or promoted. For me, it starts with a super tight knit community that I now have been connected to as a person. Like my name is now attached to the account, whether I wanted it originally to be or not. But I always try to make it a platform for like assistants, like at its core, or people that, are overlooked and not given a voice necessarily to talk about some things that, we joke about on the account, but maybe serious for people. It's like assistants making, 40 something thousand a year and trying to live in LA. Like that probably is an issue. I'm just, I posted facts around that. It started in a way that was purely just humor-based, meme style relatability. And I think it's evolved with the notion and thought for me is like, how can I service the community that has been built around in a positive way and arm them with resources to be able to empower them to have their own conversations, or at least bring up things that in the past people weren't talking about.
You are like the voice for a ton of tiny people in this town, which I think is so lovely. And like you handle that line really well, where it's like, I can poke fun at these people who have millions of dollars and could use a little like ball busting. I hate that phrase, but like, I think that's like a nice thing to do. I also think to the awareness, sometimes I feel like people in Hollywood are so busy, the upper levels, they don't always realize how far they've gone. Like, and I think sometimes they see these maybe and they're like, oh, that sounds crazy. And it's like, oh, wait, I might have done that. And I think that's kind of like a nice little checks and balance. That's like fun.
It's a great point. And like I've talked to, I'm not going to name them, but like, people in those positions at a lot of the agencies, and, even like the top level people at least are aware of the account because people may have sent them things and they finally, it's almost like, oh, wow, that is like the reality situation. And like we, joke about it. Like I'm now very far removed away from being an assistant. So I kind of rely on a lot of the community to like, in the comments or like, submission boxes, those things to engage. But things have certainly changed definitely since the, like certainly before my time, 8 years ago, back into 20 years ago. But I think we still, ways to go in terms of across the board, not to get like, too deep here, but like, across industry and sector, like giving these people who are, maybe it has something to do with the pay, or maybe it has something to do with having a seat at the table or an identity to be able to speak up in those meetings. Because a lot of people that have previously, you see a lot of kids that are under 25, like going and starting successful companies. So, leaving because they didn't have the opportunities. That's something more structured. So yeah, I think it's something that anyone from an intern or mailroom up to C-suite level can at least, relate to in some aspects. And whether it be that's something I've done or that's something I made people do, maybe it is a little checks and balances.
I have a question. So you said like slowly people started finding out it was you. You and me briefly talked, like just through Instagram DMs. And I still didn't, I never went digging into your personality. I was like, I just like this meme account. Then once you went on The Town, I was like, oh, this is like fully cat out of the bag. The Town to me is one of the largest like podcast news outlets. So what made you do that? Or do you feel like people knew before then and I was just maybe out of the loop?
No, so Hollywood Reporter reached out probably 3 years ago. Someone gave him a tip that it was me. And I declined because at that point it was a little premature. I hadn't really established a business around the account, and a business in the way that like people saw it as something more than just, meme account. Since then, a lot of brand partnerships, but more so like a lot of IP building. And that's where now it's like something that I'm proud to be in front of, because I think it's brought up across, hopefully, even if just one person was affected by it in a positive way, even made them realize that they're not alone in dealing with some of this stuff. And I think that's a lot of messages I get are because of that. So I started to see that wave of it's a meme page. It's kind of it's built around like not a cult. If you say like kind of a cultural movement, but also around a really engaged community that saw it as something positive. Then Variety wrote a story and named me, and that was the first time. Or Business Insider, I think it was Variety, but Business Insider then did a profile, and I was like, I'm now I have to just kind of own it. But I also saw that as an opportunity to, how can I utilize the platform and the voice that I have created by accident in a positive way.
Do you have a recipe or a formula, or have you ever even thought about it, to what is like a perfect meme? Is it like one part relatability, one part humor? What do you think makes a great meme?
Interesting you say that. I think someone's asked me this, I think a couple of years ago. I don't know if I had an answer then, but for me, it's having no formula and being reactive to pop culture moments in real time and tying those into something that is very relatable. So relatable in the form of, is it a picture that people, are familiar with in a way? Is it like I did something like Timothy Chalamet. Everyone knows Timothy Chalamet, but his reaction in that gave me the ability to then tie in something totally different. That might be a pop culture moment in real time happening at the Grammys, for instance, or something along the lines of that, where people see the picture, it brings them in. And then I think like the messaging around that, for me, it's like drawn to pop culture moments happening in real time. Or flip side, like the picture is of something happening 20 minutes ago and being quick to tie that into an experience that an assistant may have, tying it into thinking about what is niche enough for the audience and the messaging and the visual element, but also relatable to a certain mass that would see it online and like grow and be able to tap it and also continue to grow the audience, which has been kind of a goal.
You are just so good at, like, I'm just looking at it. It's 2 viral TikToks, but like, me personally, this is why I like admire this art form so much. I don't walk away from that being like, that was meme worthy. And like, you see it and you're like, everyone knows this.
For me, like, it's funny. I never thought that I would be doing anything remotely close to this, but I guess I see things in a different way now than I did when I started, where like, how can I create like a relatable meme around it or format of it? But my wife kills me at night. Like we'll be middle of Severance and I'll be like, I have to go. I'm going to the meme lab, going for like 20 minutes. I have an app on my phone, or like go in Photoshop and like create something. So it's tough for me to get through shows with her, but a lot of it, all of it really is like reacting to things happening in real time. And kind of, it's trying to like have my finger on the pulse of like, what are the things that people are talking about? What are the events coming up? So thinking, award season's a big tentpole item for, making relatable content around. But like, I have zero things in the drafts. Like, I don't have a content calendar. I don't have anything that I'm like preparing to post. And it's just, maybe I'll be driving somewhere later today and be inspired by like something that I see on a billboard and, whatever.
One of my friends just joined TikTok very recently in the last like 2 weeks. And so he's been asking me a lot of questions about best practices, how to maximize views and all this stuff. And so I've had to think about a lot of these things. But I mean, the same thing happens with me where it's like, I'll have to go in my room and I tell my fiance, like, I have to go make this TikTok really quick because I think that it seems ridiculous to people, but sometimes being the first person to have the post that gets, the views on a certain topic can make like a huge difference. And when you eventually make the move to TikTok, I'm sure you'll find the same thing, but it's like all of my recent, like I make a lot of TikToks with writing advice and stuff. And the ones that I think are like so profound and like, it's going to help so many people, not very many views. But then it's like, let me tell you why I thought Timmy doing his Bob Dylan thing on SNL was so amazing. It's like 1 million views. So it's like, because I was like one of the first people to talk about, I'm so passionate about this thing that just happened on TV that I love. And so I don't know. Yeah, you have to be quick and you have to react right when people are scrolling. I mean, the internet moves at light speed.
Yeah, agreed. But I could not agree with you more in terms of I have sat down, prepped, a picture or like a post for like a couple hours, really thought about it, went back in the draft, went in Photoshop, changed these things, whatever, minimal likes, like no one cares about it. I'll just like post something that I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I am just in a mood to post something, pop, and it goes crazy. I'm just like that. And it's like kind of funny, but it's also like, you're like, I kind of disagree with this whole mentality around like, gotta beat the algorithm and like getting, and all this stuff. Like people I don't like that word because I think, there are people that are very Duolingo. There's others like online that are very good at just being themselves and like figuring out a niche. And for me, like I am lucky to have is the ability to go and try different things because some of it will fail and it's fine. Like I'll just go and archive it if it's like whatever. But the other stuff that, just go out and like, should I try posting the video of Chaperone talking about the fact that artists should, have healthcare, and like that went crazy, started a conversation. There was the Hollywood Reporter article, which I reposted and people were getting into with the author. So like that was something where like I was just like, let me post this because it could be interesting to start a conversation around something a little more serious. And then like that started the string of the next 10 posts were about this. There was an article I went and posted about Chaperone's career and like went out and interviewed other people involved. So yeah, it's certainly, people will say there's a 4-man algorithm and I'll disagree, at least from my point of view. It really is just a lot of it of what you think will do well may not. And it's just about, I think, trying different things and also being open to the fact that whatever you put in your most effort may not do well on the flip side.
Yeah, it's always where I'm like, I just spent an hour and a half on this video. I put like cute little images that would float up and I was like, 100 views. And then it's like, I rant about the fact that I think I ranted about liking Ted Cruz's daughter. And that one was just like skyrocketed. And I was like, that was 3 seconds of my life.
I wonder if there's like a subconscious, like people can subconsciously tell that like the amount of effort put in wasn't calculated. And so it like, there's something there.
Yeah, like it's just like more gun and run, which I think is also, it's like a very entertainment industry thing too. I also like some people, I feel like it's so precious about work and they try to hang their hat on one thing. And I'm like, oh God, that one thing. And there's so many people in the way of it. You might as well throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. And that kind of brings me to Warner. Like you are obviously growing this. You have a ton of amazing brand deals. I love the crossovers you do because it's so integrated into who the account is. When did you start realizing like, oh, that is where this can grow? And then like, where do you see it going beyond that?
The newsletter, again, something about just saying yes and getting myself involved in too deep. Like I don't subscribe to a single newsletter before. I didn't before that. And I was like, I'm just going to start a newsletter. I don't know anything about it. I'm just going for it. And like I luckily enough had a bunch of yeses early enough to interview different people and people that I really looked up to and admired. And I think their stories of rising from whether it be intern mailroom up to some of them SVP or CEOs of some of these companies now, or at least people in positions where they have a platform and they have a name in the industry, but people rarely ask, where did you start from? So I think those stories started to really resonate with people that, individuals that were either in college or assistants currently at agencies with a little bit of hope saying, I'm going to put in my time and one day I'll be, running a division of Live Nation or running something at Wasserman, etc. So I was also inspired by sitting down with those people because those are, some of the early ones are like mentors to me and people I looked up to. So I saw that as, okay, there is something deeper here that's more resource driven that can give, people that can arm, again, like the two buckets being college kids and people earlier in their careers with, inspirational stories, but also resources like the job board. So then I was like, how can I start to build a side of the company that services that community in that beneficial, positive way? That's not all humor based. I still have that like witty type, like, try to be a little left to center from how, trade would cover a story. But I think the job board started to pick up steam and these interviews were cool. So launching a podcast next month or in a couple months, maybe next month, if I can get it done and focus on it. So that's one side of the business. I still want to do entertainment or working on a TV show, a book idea. Again, getting myself involved in too many things. It remains just me that if you've ever DM'd the account, I've been the one answering it. No one else has the password. I have an awesome newsletter editor now named Riley who's helped me grow that section of the business. But the next iteration is me hiring people because I would rather collaborate. And you mentioned collaborations. Like I love even this conversation, just sitting in a room with like people that are way more talented and smarter than me in their fields that I can lean on a bit to learn and produce hopefully IP that's different than what I'm doing and maybe in a more scalable way.
I think that's so fun because I think about it a lot actually, how much I love a traditional path. Like it comforts me a lot of ways. And so like being able to read and like see those, I'm still like, that is still a viable way to exist in this industry and like make your way if you can stick it out. And then also like your route. And I'm sure like as we watch more people, like you said, like all these 25-year-olds are leaving and starting their own companies, like watching those people too, like there's just, the industry is hard, but it almost is like that comforts you to know there are so many ways to do it if you can withstand.
A lot of what we talk about with these interviews, Seth Dodowski runs music at NFL, so he programs a halftime show. We talked last year, right before the Super Bowl, and his piece of advice was about getting better every day. And his advice to the readers was that if you get 1% better every day, you're then moving towards a goal versus people. I think now there's an immediacy of I want to do this by next week and grow and be promoted. But his point of view is take it slow. You do it the right way. 1% every day. You'll get to that goal. Even with social media, there's this, you need instant like gratification with everything we're doing. It's like people, when you post something, I need 1,000 likes, or if you go out and apply for a job, I need feedback right away. Or there's, these things in life too, where like things are moving and so crazy. You talk about the internet, but I think in general, everything is moving so fast now where, if you can sit down and enjoy the process and be, looking at what you're doing now and thinking about 5 years ago, I think a lot of us would be very proud of where we're at now, but then a lot of us also are very unfulfilled for some reason in day to day. I think a lot of that is the stress of the entertainment industry and just how quickly it's moving and mass layoffs. And, it is, that advice really stuck with me, and just thinking about be happy in the current moment and focus on what can I do today to get closer to whatever the goal may be. And then repeat the process again tomorrow. And within a month or two, you'll start to see success versus chasing some pie in the sky goal and trying to get it done by next week.
I have kind of like a philosophical like business meets internet question, because obviously like you seem like a pretty business savvy guy. And I think the three of us between us have spent like a lot of time on the internet. I'm really interested. I've been thinking about this ever since you mentioned Duolingo earlier. So I've just been thinking about this lately because I think the whole appeal of like your type of company, right, is the way you grow, the way you spread awareness, is you work with brands. And I think, especially from what I've seen on TikTok and the way like social media works now, there are really creative ways to do brand partnerships and to grow in that way that feel more authentic than what we're used to from advertising, right? But overall, it still feels like people have this like repulsion to anything, when they get a whiff of anything being advertised. I mean, I see it on TikTok all the time when it's like I make a TikTok on my own about a movie that I love. Then the company is like, hey, can we boost this? We want to use this as an advertisement. It's like when somebody writes an amazing review and they put that quote in the trailer. But then everybody's like, you got paid to say you love this, blah, blah, blah. Like if they get a whiff of anything, right? And then you have companies like Duolingo who like have their own online personas. And now it's like Ben and Jerry's is commenting like slay girl on some viral TikTok. So it's like, I guess my question is, what are you cautious of all that when you think about your company, your brand, the way you market, like the collaborations you do? And also, how do you not piss off people who like are ready to like be so mad when they get one whiff of something like that?
It's a fantastic question, and it's certainly something that I think a lot about from the assistants versus agent side. My day to day, I work a lot in the music festival space, so that working with the Celsius or Don Julio, or we're actually putting together a charity fundraising benefit concert in Malibu on March 16th, and we're going to have a cool lineup up in Aviator Nation, Dreamland in Malibu. So, and we're going to have frontline workers. So thinking there about what are the brands that we want to align that project with versus me at a Live Nation or, working at GV Surf Club or Desert Air, which are some of the events that I've been a part of. Festivals, like the mentality on those are two very different things that you need to be very cautious about. But it's amplified times a million when you think about assistants versus agents, where it is almost like an anti-corporate account, right? Where like it is so built around this sense of authenticity and community and, like serving people, servicing a community in a way that holds true to why it started. So I'm really cognizant about the brands that I work with from that account. I get hit up a lot. Hey, can you post this and promote it? No, is always the answer. But someone like Netflix approaches me. Hey, we have this project, A Family Affair. We really want to highlight and shine a light on assistants in Hollywood. Joey King plays the assistant in A Family Affair. They offered up their theater, the sit-down theater, had about 350 assistants and open bar, free food, and brought them out and gave them an hour to mingle and be amongst one another. And then pre-screen the movie. I brought out Joey King. We had a little back and forth Q&A on stage. That's the way to do it, right? That's authentic. You're bringing people out, giving them an opportunity that normally is reserved for agents or people that are in leadership positions. No one's like having assistants out to their campus, feeding them, giving them drinks and letting them mingle and like giving them a pre-screening to a movie. So that was probably the singular use case a case study that I'm like most proud of with the account. There's been now a bunch of other screenings and things that we can intertwine like humor into the account, but that was done in really the right way. So shout out to them. And there's certainly others that I've worked with, and we're planning some really fun stuff coming up, but it needs to be done in an authentic way. And then, the flip side of it is I've never charged a follower for a single thing outside of merch. Like we've in these hats, industry plan. I've done a lot of charity merch. So we have this LA Strong collection now that is going to CA Fire Foundation. So always trying to find a way, if I'm charging them, for it to be to go either to charity or benefit something in some way. But I've kept the account. Like I don't charge people right now for my newsletter. There's no mechanism where I'm charging it. So the only way to like make this into a business is you have to work with brands. Unfortunately, I'm not generating money from Instagram directly. I don't have a TikTok. So thinking about being careful with it, but also I think hopefully the community can see like that is how you grow a business. And for me I posted for 6 years making $0, right? Or 5. And like, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, and I want to keep doing it. But how then can I create IP? And now it's like through the book with a TV show, working on potentially a card game. And there's other things in the mix now where it's like, those will be revenue generating projects. But the Instagram, I hope people continue to see it as this like fun, authentic place that if there's brands involved, just know that I've really thought about that and like thought about what is the best way to present the brand to the community with the understanding and kind of respect towards the community that's built it, with me.
I love what you said about how you never charged anyone, because I feel like that's something also people don't really understand is, I think people in this current moment they do understand, like they'll call people out for not being paid for their time. If you're making stuff that's worthwhile, that people are into, like you should be paid for your time. But in general, like for example, like, yeah, I've spent hours and hours and hours just trying to help people with writing on TikTok. I don't charge, like, I don't have a course. I'm not like a writing guy with a course or anything. It's charged $0. And yet when I take one of these brand deals where I'm like, oh, this will offset that. This will be like, because I've never charged anyone, like, that's great. But yeah, I think there's just a disconnect for people there. And I get it. I think, like, overall, sure, it's good to be cautious of being sold something. It's good to be cautious of these types of things. But I also just feel like people have to realize, like, we still live in the real world.
There are bills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've always struggled. That's why. So my Substack actually is, most of it's free. The only reason that I did it that way is because Nick knows this. Brands ask me to do things for free all the time. And I say, yeah, like, I have no backbone to be found when it comes to stuff like that. I'd be like, I'll do it for free. And I realized, I was like, okay, if people like me enough, like, maybe they will, and otherwise they can just enjoy this for free. But even to Nick's point, I did my own post. Someone said they loved it. And then they were like, could we just promo it? I was, of course. The comments, I just don't engage because people just can't. I'm like, not everything is it's the distrust of media is, like, very interesting, I guess.
Shout out to you too. It's like what you're providing is extremely valuable for people. And like, if someone were selling a course or a book or like, of course they're going to charge for that. So there's this weird mentality, and like, because you're a creator, you shouldn't be able to charge for things in the similar way that any other business would. And I think, when people go full time and as a creator, you have to. So I think as I move full time into this, like, I certainly am going to, have to do those types of things. And like, I think another good example is, like, I'm not going to tell you which agency, but Prince Street Pizza reached out. They're like, we just want to feed one of the mailrooms at one of the talent agencies. So I'm going to show up next Friday, a week from today, one of the talent agencies. I'm not going to say which one, and we're going to feed all their assistants. They didn't even ask for a post or anything. They were just like, let's just feed them for fun. Like, people see that. I'm like, yeah, of course. People probably are like, you're going to get paid for that. I'm making $0. I'm going to go pick it up, not even, and drop it off. So, there's ways that, like, I think you have to be cognizant of the community you build in advertising, but at the same time, it's like you have to in order to survive. And
I think it's also like, that's not better than a sponsored deal. You know what I mean? Like, there's a downside to every deal that you make in this little industry, or there's an upside. And it's like, what does your community think it's worth? And I think that's like, I'm very excited to watch this pizza go down.
Again, companies evolve, and like, I see this to me as like my future. I'm so passionate about it. Like, I'm still going to be in the music festival world. Again, this one we're putting on in March, doing some stuff around Coachella and other festivals in the future. But I really love like assistants versus agents, the people around it. And no matter if it's 7 a.m. and I'm, sending emails about brand partnership, or like 11 p.m. and making memes, like, I appreciate a lot of the notes I get from people about how, it's given them, a chance to go to their boss with a, like, either a salary thing, or, hey, I'm so happy, like, I'm not in this alone. A lot of these posts have made me feel like heard and things. So those are, it's kind of inspiring, like, in a way. And something I never ever thought it would evolve to, but I'm excited to see it continue to evolve and hopefully be a positive voice in an industry that has a lot of negative ones. Especially in like the media world and people, in the past, I think there's like this shift of people like yourselves who are covering it in a way that's a lot more positive.
And I think it's important that that it's all coming from a place of people who've done the job, right? It's like this rite of passage. I mean, I had such, compared to other people from film school that I know who worked at agencies who did not have good experiences at all. Yeah. Like, I had such amazing bosses and such a good experience as an assistant. But even when you have like even a good experience as an assistant, like, there were major lows that I had. Like, you're still not making very much money. I couldn't pay my rent. I was like a little bit overlapped on rent every month. Like, it is. And sometimes even when you have bosses who understand it, it's still not the same as like, well, it'd be better if you were nice, but I was also making enough to actually pay my rent. And it's such a, like, it's like the equivalent of like going out to drinks with an assistant that you've been like emailing with, you're both your bosses for months. And then you finally get to be like, oh my God, like, this is so hard. Right. And really just like the camaraderie, you have to have that.
I hope that the account serves as kind of a remedy to the isolation, especially during COVID and post-COVID when it started to pick up steam. I think people really felt that way. They weren't in person. And now I'm fully remote, in things that I do. I think a lot of people are. So the interaction, like I'm someone that really thrives on IRL, but being seen as, evolve digitally has been interesting. I think, agreed with what you said though. I think it's, no matter, I had an amazing experience as an assistant and I wouldn't just say that. I really did. I worked for 3 awesome bosses at WME that I still, I've gone to dinner with one recently, the other I called on 2 nights ago. And I have a great relationship with them. And I think some people see it as a rite of passage. Like it helped jumpstart my career in a way that like I'm very thankful for. But hopefully the account serves as a reminder that things aren't necessarily perfect, and there's still people out there that maybe aren't getting totally treated the right way. So things have changed since I've been. Except I think as an industry, like there is a new guard coming in that isn't like the status quo that is already starting to shake things up at new companies, smaller companies, smaller agencies, like offshoots. I think those things are starting to happen in a way that is going to be interesting to track the next couple of years.